What is up, Warzone Sports Army? Mike on the mic here, and today, instead of bringing a film room episode to y'all, we're going to be revisiting some of the predictions that the Warzone made at the beginning of the season, taking a look at what was accurate, what isn't accurate, and what teams are on track to do this season. Today, we're going to be looking at the entire AFC, and tomorrow, we're going to be looking at the entire NFC. We're calling it Mike's Midseason Review, and I'm pretty pumped to get into it, but first, help me out real quick by liking this video, because that helps out a ton in the algorithm, and tapping that subscription, plus a little notification bell so you're alerted every time we post a new video or go live. We're posting 15 plus videos per week, and we're going live for every single NFL primetime game, and more. And more, and more, and the Warzone will continue to grow and expand over time. I appreciate y'all doing that, and after we hit some funky music, then we're going to get into the AFC's mid-season review.
I gave you fair warning, beware. Smack him in the corner of the end zone. It is caught for the touchdown. Smack him in the mouth. I gave you fair warning, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth.
We're going to start off with the AFC North. Let me explain how this is laid out. So the predicted records that you see here, so the Ravens predicted 11-6 record to their current record. The predicted record was the Warzone Sports Network average. We had every host and co-host make a prediction for every single team in the NFL before the season started, and we averaged those out to get a Warzone Sports Network average prediction. So all of the records in the predicted boxes are that Warzone Sports Network average, what we as a collective averaged out and expected from that team this season. Prior to the season starting, obviously, in the preseason and even before that during the offseason. And then the current box is their current record standing here at the midway point of the 2021-2022 NFL season. And like I said, today we're going to be going over the entire AFC. Tomorrow I'm going to make a video about the entire NFC, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. So starting with the Baltimore Ravens, who are technically in first place in the AFC North by about a half a game. As you see, the Warzone predicted that they were going to go in 11-6, and right now they're on track to be a slightly better than that, but around the same record. If you really stop and look at the Baltimore Ravens schedule they have coming up, they have some tough games to close out the rest of the year. And I think 11-6, 12-5, if they win 13 games, I'll be a little bit surprised just based off the strength of schedule. But 11-6, 12-5 is the road that the Ravens were heading down, so the Warzone kind of nailed this prediction. We shall see if Lamar can continue to play on this MVP level that he's been playing on. Because this team has quietly, and I say quietly because they've still been really, really good, have quietly had some of the most injuries out of all the teams in the entire NFL. Speaking of injuries, let's talk about the Cleveland Browns for a second. They were projected by the Warzone to win this division, but they're sitting at 4-4 right now, and the chances of them going, what would it be, 8-1 to finish the season, I think are very unlikely, so I do not think they're going to match that 12-5 predicted record. But if they can get it together, and if they can kind of fix this and play through these injuries, then we could see this team still win 10 games this year. But honestly, in my opinion, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs anymore. As the way it's heading down, now there's drama with OBJ and the Cleveland Browns, and there was all kinds of other issues on the field with the team, and you could tell that there is a chemistry problem there. And really, the last good game we saw them play was against the Los Angeles Chargers, which they lost, but they put up 42 points or something like that and kept pace with an absolute shootout of a game. I mean, man, they just lost to the Steelers this last weekend. And I'm not trying to say the Steelers are bad or anything or put the Steelers down, but when you look at the rosters and compare them on paper, the Steelers' offense and the Browns' offense should be nowhere near each other, and the defenses should be kind of similar as far as production. But like I said, we're not seeing that chemistry work together with these guys. It's all on paper talk, and the Browns are 4-4, and this is why I had doubts about the Browns heading into the season still, despite them having this absolutely loaded roster. There's a lot to talk about and a lot to figure out in Cleveland. I think that their objective should be to try and still make the wild card, because they're still in the race to make the wild card in the AFC, which is going to be tight when it comes down to the end of the season. But more importantly, the Browns should be looking at what is their status as far as Baker Mayfield and his future at quarterback. Really analyzing and assessing whether or not you think that this guy is going to be your franchise 15 more years of Baker Mayfield in Cleveland guy. Because if not, the time to rip off the Band-Aid is now. I mean, you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to franchise tag him or sign him to a long-term deal, or maybe even do a shorter-term deal, like a 2-year deal? I could see that possibly for Baker to save some money to keep some of these other players on the roster. But the Browns have some huge decisions to make when it comes to the quarterback position. Everywhere else in the roster is ready to go. They just got to stay healthy for an entire season, which has not happened this year. Now let's talk about the Steelers, who just beat the Browns. Honestly, the Steelers should be ranked above the Browns right now, and the Steelers are probably have a more likely chance to make the playoffs just because of how dominant that defense is playing again. They're 4-3. The projection was 9-8, so I think the projection isn't too far off what the Steelers are going to finish off as. I think they're going to be a little bit better than 9-8 now, maybe a 10-7 team. This was a team that I think I graded really low, so I was wrong about the Steelers, and we always try and predict the Steelers' downfall. It's going to happen eventually, but as long as that defense is playing at the level it's playing and is continuing to dominate, we're going to see them win games like the game against Cleveland. We're going to see them win games against other teams that may not be as explosive on offense, that absolutely get shut down by the Steelers defense. And not that the Browns aren't explosive on offense, they're dealing with the Kareem Hunt injury, the offensive line is banged up, and there's a bunch of chemistry issues between the receivers and the quarterback. So it's more of just a chemistry problem, and that's what's going on with the Browns right now. But the Steelers do play teams that don't have those great offenses really tough, and I expect that to continue for the rest of the year as long as this defense is healthy. So I'm going to take the Steelers over the Browns right now as a better chance to make the wild card. And then let's talk about the biggest surprise of the NFL season, in my opinion, so far. The projected record for the Cincinnati Bengals by the Warzone was 5-12, and we saw as low as 3 wins, as high as 6 wins for the Bengals, and the people who predicted 6 wins were probably the closest, because as it stands right now, the Bengals are 5-3, and yes, they did just lose to the New York Jets, but even losing to the Jets and being at 5-3 at this point in the season is a huge win for this Bengals team and a huge step forward in this team's development, and they are way ahead of schedule for what anyone expected them to be with Joe Burrow and the receiving core and the defense and all of that being rebuilt over the last couple of years. I had the Bengals as a playoff lock in the tier list a couple of weeks ago, and I still feel that way. I think that this team is going to get one of those wild card spots 100%, as long as nothing terrible happens, knock on wood, to any of their key players, because that's the one thing that the Bengals don't have, and where I see them struggling in the playoffs or struggling down the stretch of the season. They don't really have the depth that some of these other teams, especially in this division, have to last an entire 17-game year, but we shall see. On the path that they're heading is toward the wild card. Let's go to the AFC South next, starting with the Texans up in the top corner there. The projected record by the Warzone was 2-15, and we're seeing that basically be spot on, as this team is 1-7 on track to go 2-15 this year. The Texans are entering a full rebuild, and who could have guessed it, right? We don't know what's going on with the Deshaun Watson situation. We just know that he's not probably going to play another game as a Houston Texan, if he plays another game at all, to be completely honest. So that leaves Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor in the quarterback room, and I just don't think either one of those guys are the future of this franchise. So they're going to be looking for a quarterback this offseason, whether it's in the draft or whether it's in free agency and going after guys. They're going to have draft picks, because I'm assuming they're going to get some draft picks whenever they are able to get Deshaun Watson traded. So they can really start to work on this team all around, because this team needs a wide receiver 1. This team needs a steady tight end. This team needs a running back. This team needs help on the offensive line. This team needs help in the secondary. This team needs help at linebacker. This team could use some better pass rushers. You're getting the gist. This team needs to rebuild from the ground up, and it's probably going to take 4 to 5 years. And the Texans just keep repeating this vicious cycle where they get all these draft picks and they get high draft picks and they get a couple star players, but they don't finish the rebuild. They don't put together a championship caliber team, and they fall apart. And here we go again. We've fallen apart and we need to rebuild. Let's talk about the Colts. We had them at 11-6 to start off the year. I kind of expected the rough start just because I looked at the schedule and I realistically sat down and talked to myself and said, man, they play some tough teams. They may start off 500. They may start off a little bit below 500. And sure enough, they're 3-5. The Warzone projected them to win 11 games, and I think I did in my individual projection. I had 11 games as well, and I still think they can reach that, although they would have to finish the season very well with only one more loss. So I think 10 wins, 9 wins is kind of what the Colts can do this year, and if they can get these 10 wins, or if they can get 11 wins now that the Titans lost Derrick Henry, then I think that they can sneak back into the conversation for this division and sneak back into the conversation for a possible wildcard spot, but more so the division. I think this 11-6 that we got here for the Titans and for the Colts, the Titans were trending past that. The Titans were trending towards a 13-win season before the Derrick Henry injury, but now with Derrick Henry out, I think that this 11-win projection between these two teams could be accurate, and we could see a really close race when it comes down to the end of the season, with possibly the Colts losing out by a game or a half a game or even maybe a tiebreaker. So kind of what we expect from the Colts. I may have projected one more win at this point in the year, which would make me feel better about this 11-win projection. So I think that we're going to stick with it. I think they win 10 games. I do. I think they win 10 games and maybe 9 at the lowest. They're definitely the best 3-5 team in the league right now. And they're definitely one of the better sub 500 teams in the league right now, if not the best sub 500 team in the league right now is the Indianapolis Colts. Carson Wentz is playing great. Michael Pittman is emerging as a possible star wide receiver 1 for them in the future. The offensive line is still solid. Not amazing. They've dealt with injuries a little bit, but still solid. And the defense is still solid as well. It just comes down to putting it all together against the good teams. And that's what they haven't been able to do this year, including their really close loss just this last weekend. Speaking of the Titans, they have been red hot, scorching hot the last couple of weeks, beating the Colts last week and beating the Chiefs and Bills in consecutive weeks the week before that to improve to 6-2. But last week they lose Derrick Henry, who has been the main factor in this run. I think the Titans take a step back from this. I still think that they can beat bad teams, but when it comes to playing against those really good teams, Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion, is showing a little bit that he isn't quite the passer that we may have thought he was, and he does benefit from Derrick Henry and that play action immensely. And I've just seen multiple throws, a bunch of throws actually, where Tannehill stepped back and not really looked as good as I thought he was, and I actually have him ranked below Carr, below Cousins, and all the way back with like the Baker Mayfield tier. So now with Derrick Henry gone, I'm not sure how effective or if he's going to remain effective as they've been the last couple of weeks with Ryan Tannehill to A.J. Brown, who has in midseason found himself again after starting off the season rough dealing with injuries. And we'll see if Julio can stay healthy and stay in the mix as well. I think this 11-win projection is still possible. That means the team will go 5-4 to finish the season, and I think that's pretty fair for this Titans team, and I think they can still squeak out this division. This hot start, and then losing Derrick Henry, if you were going to lose Derrick Henry, which you obviously don't want to lose Derrick Henry, this was the best way to do it. Now he can heal up and possibly come back for a Tennessee Titans playoff run, which we shall see if that happens. But the Colts are chasing, and the Colts are going to chase hard. I think losing this last weekend, if the Colts got the win against the Titans this last weekend, I give them a lot better shot to catch up to Tennessee. But now down 3 full games, that's kind of tough to come back from. There's only 9 games left in the season for both these teams. The Colts have to damn near be perfect to finish the season perfect to win the division. Then we go to the Jaguars, and the Jaguars have shown some flashes. They did win that game against the Dolphins in London. Okay, so there is an editing issue here. The Jaguars were predicted to go 4-13. My individual projection was 6-11. That's what you see here. Just pretend like none of that exists. This team is 1-6 right now, on track to win 2 or 3 games this year. The 4-13 projection seems to be true. Everyone just realized that they are in the developmental stage still as a team, and then you also add in that this is the first year head coach in the NFL in Urban Meyer, who's dealt with his own issues with the rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence. I would say with them competing with a few teams this year that they've been even better than expected, to be honest. But I had them winning 6 games just because I was high on them taking a huge step forward. Not going to see 6 games, I don't think, out of this Jaguars team. I think 3 or 4 wins is pretty safe bet, even as low as 2 wins for the entire season. So the Warzone, which is this one right here, it's messed up. Like I said, it's 4-13 projection is looking like it's going to be accurate. Moving on to the AFC East, and we had the Buffalo Bills projected to go 13-3. It's looking like they're going to go 13-3. That's only 16 games, so it would be 13-4. Another mistake there. There you go, Mike. Way to go. But 13-4 is the projection for the Bills coming into the season, and they are currently 5-2. So I think that 13-4 projection is looking very realistic, and this team is on track to go around 13-4 or 14-3, possibly even 12-5. But I think that I could see them winning 13 games this year with the way they're playing, maybe lose 1 or 2 more games the rest of the year. One of the games that they lost was against the Tennessee Titans, and they lost by Josh Allen slipping on that 4th and 1 conversion. I mean, that's what the game came down to. The Titans played an amazing game. The entire game is why the Titans won, but it came down to that one play, and Josh Allen came 1 yard away from this team only having 1 loss this year. But I'm not trying to take credit away from the Titans. They deserve credit for that win, obviously. The Bills are good, man. They're competing for an AFC championship this year, honestly, especially with the Chiefs taking a step back, which we'll talk about here in a second. Moving on to the Patriots, the Warzone average projection was 10-7. They're 4-4 right now, so they're on track to be around 9-8 or 8-9. I think that that's pretty spot on. Only 1 less win than this 10-7 projection. And if Mac Jones continues to get better, we could see them reach this 10-win projection. What's impressed me most about the Patriots, and they tried to do it last year, but a little bit less successfully than they're doing it this year, is they're still playing to a strict game plan every single game that's keeping them close in every single game. They realize that on paper, talent for talent, player for player, they aren't matching up with the guys that they're playing against on the other side. But when it comes to executing the game plan, they're executing it to damn near perfection, which is keeping them in every single game against any team in the league. And then it just comes down to the end of the game, who's going to make a play, who's going to make less mistakes. And Bill Belichick is got a disciplined team here that's going to make less mistakes than their opponent, and that's how they're getting most of their victories. And all of these Patriots games, even against teams like the Cowboys, have been extremely close, and they lose because the other team just makes the plays at the end of the game. And I think that's the way the Patriots are down to play. And like, hey, if you make more plays than us at the end of the game when it's a 3-point game, congratulations. You get the win. You should have beat us. Everyone predicted you to beat us. But if you don't make those plays, or you make a costly mistake on a 3rd down, or you get a bad penalty to start off your game-winning drive, or what should be your game-winning drive, and you lose, well, that's exactly how we planned it. And Bill Belichick, man, what do you expect from him? Something like this. And I feel like he feels a lot more comfortable with Mac Jones than Cam Newton this year. Very impressive what the Patriots been doing so far. Very surprising. I think I had them winning 10 games in my individual projection, but I had it different than this. I had them dominating defensively and not really having a crazy good offense. And for the most part, that's been true. But we've seen the offense show flashes like against Dallas. And the offense was solid against the Chargers, doing really good at time of possession and all that kind of stuff. Moving on to the Dolphins, the Warzone was very skeptical of this Dolphins team, a team that won 10 games last year and missed the playoffs. They had a 9-8, so one less win projection than last year as an average. I believe I had the Dolphins winning 7 games, and they are 1-7 to start the year. I don't even know if they're going to win those 7 games. I don't think that they're going to win those 7 games. They have to finish the season really strong to win 7 games this year. This team is heading down a path where they're going to win 4, maybe 5 games if they have those kind of bad opponents on their schedule. And when it comes down to it, the defense isn't nowhere near what it was last year, and Tua has flashes still, but still is not consistently putting it together. And it's getting to a point where I criticize Tua so much that it makes it look like I'm a Tua hater. I want Tua to succeed. I just am being realistic here. He is nowhere near the level of the quarterbacks drafted around him. Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert have shown that they're both way leaps and bounds better at this point in their careers than Tua, and Dolphins fans will still try to compare Tua with those two guys. Tua does not belong in the same sentence with those two guys. Tua has 2 to 3 years of development to even reach someone that I could say is going to be a starter for his entire career, because he still struggles with making those big plays and those big passes down the field. Even in his 4 passing touchdown game, if you go and watch the film from that game, he was bad on probably about 30% of the offensive plays. And in the NFL, you cannot be great 7 out of 10 times as the star quarterback. You cannot be great 6 out of 10 times as the star quarterback. You need to be great 9.5 out of 10 times to be a superstar quarterback and a guy that's worth a high draft pick as Tua Tagovailoa was in this league. So if you guys want to call me a Tua hater in the comments, go ahead. It's slightly true, but I'm not hating on him. I'm telling you what I see on tape when I watch him play. And I keep revisiting it because people keep telling me that he's improving everything that I saw in this offseason and last offseason and now in this regular season, and it's not happened. He's not improved as much as the other quarterbacks that were drafted around him. And I think it's safe to say that Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow both are showing potential of being 15 to 20-year quarterbacks in the league. I do not know if Tua makes it past another 2 or 3 years as a starting quarterback in the NFL, especially if the Dolphins trade him. Who knows what happens then? And that's how bad it's gotten to where his own team that drafted him, put all this stock into him, are ready to trade him a year and a half into his time as a Dolphin. So the Dolphins really got to figure that out with the rest of the year, what they're going to do with Tua. And even Tua himself is confused on what they're going to do with Tua. And then we go to the Jets. Obviously picked up Zach Wilson, and we had a 5-12 projection. And that was because Alex Robson put them at 8 wins, which was absolutely ridiculous and stood no chance of happening. They're 2-5 right now. They've upset 2 teams, both the Bengals and the Titans, this season. So this team shows that if you sleep on them, they can rise up to the challenge and shock you. But I don't see them shocking too many more teams this year. I think 5-12 or 4-13, even 3-14 is possible for the Jets the rest of the way. Their starting quarterback is obviously hurt in Zach Wilson, although Mike White filled in very nicely last week. Thank you in the 32-man fantasy league, Mike White. Let's hope that Mike White can do it again tonight against the Colts. It'll be a ton of fun. But this Jets team is rebuilding still. I like the strides they took this offseason. You added a guy like Corey Davis, who can be very solid. Not been too consistent this year, but I think that may have something to do with the inconsistency at quarterback just as much as anything. Michael Carter looks really nice for New York right now. He could be a workhorse style of back in coming years. And you look at the defensive side of the ball, the defense is overperforming a little bit, in my opinion, so far this year. They're not such a cakewalk as they've been in previous years. So kudos to the Jets, taking one step forward, not 5 steps, not a leap, not a jump forward, but one normal size step forward in developing an actual competitive team. We'll see what Zach Wilson turns out to be in coming years, but even if Zach Wilson isn't the guy in the long term, they can definitely keep building this team and be ready for a quarterback at some point. And let's go to my favorite division in football, the AFC West. Starting off with the Chiefs, the Warzone had a 14-3 projection on the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is already not going to happen. The best that they can go is 13-4 if they won the rest of their football games, which the way they're playing, I don't know if they're even going to win the football game that's coming up next. I mean, they almost lost to the Giants last week. So at this point, the Chiefs are falling apart and they're having a bunch of issues. Patrick Mahomes is trying to play Superman ball a little bit too much and has a turnover bug. The entire offense is fumbling and dropping passes and having a turnover bug, and then the defense is horrible as it's been the last couple of years, but it's a little bit worse. I mean, you're seeing Tyrann Mathieu kind of age a little bit, and he's not as dominant as he once was, and there just absolutely is no kind of pass rush on the defensive line to go after opposing quarterbacks. So altogether, the Chiefs are just having a very disappointing year so far this year, and I think this team is going to be trying to battle for a wild card spot when it's all said and done, which is shocking. I think they get it together in the future because they do have some young guys on defense like Nick Bolton, who's going to make an impact over the next couple of years. He just needs to develop a little bit more, and some young guys on the offensive line that need to develop a little bit more, like Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. But as of right now, the Chiefs are not going to go 14-3. And the Chiefs most likely are probably not going to win this division, although they've already brought it back to a 1.5 game difference between them and first place, although they are in third place right now. Moving on to the Raiders, one of the bigger surprises of the year. I personally, as a Raiders hater and Chargers fan, still think that they're going to fall off at some point this season and go on a losing streak. But for now, you got to give the Raiders their kudos. You got to give them their respect. Derek Carr is playing phenomenal. One of the best years of his career so far. We saw Henry Ruggs break out, and so unfortunate for what happened there, and just terrible things. A tragedy happened there with the whole Henry Ruggs situation. So he's gone, and he's going to be off the team, and he's not coming back to the NFL, hopefully, ever. But they've also shown some perseverance through the Gruden situation as well, which also, hopefully, never returns. So they've survived turmoil so far, and Bryan Edwards has stepped up. And we're seeing this defense play better than expected. Yannick Ngakoue is looking better than even I expected him to be, and I kept telling people he's an average guy. But apparently that's all Mad Max needed to start dominating because he's having a career year as well and balling out. And he's always been a baller since the beginning of his career. It's just more in the spotlight now because the Raiders are playing really good. But we'll see how they deal with this new situation they're dealing with over time. They play the Giants this week. Expect them to win that game if they're legit. If not, we can raise questions again because they did lose to the Bears. They lost to the Chargers, of course. But they lost to the Bears a couple weeks ago. So that's still in the back of my mind that they could drop a game to any team at any moment and start to fall apart at any moment. I still think that the Chargers and the Chiefs are going to finish ahead of the Raiders in the AFC West, but that's my personal opinion. As far as the midseason review, the Raiders are playing very good and are on track to win this division and definitely destroy that 7-10 projection. So we'll say that, Raiders fans. There you go. Thumbs up. We're all happy, right? We're all friends. Moving on to my Los Angeles Chargers and your Los Angeles Chargers. And 2 weeks ago, when the Chargers were 4-1, or 3 weeks ago, I guess it would be now, I would sit here and tell you the Chargers are definitely winning more than 10 games this year. But then they lose to Baltimore, and that was defensible. I mean, they had just played a string of games against really tough opponents. It was going to break eventually. You're not going to be able to just continue to dominate really good teams week after week after week. You're going to get fatigued eventually. But then to see the Chargers go into an entire 2-week bye week to prepare for the Patriots and come out and look as bad as they did against the Patriots. That game finished the 3-point game. But if you go back and watch that game, the Patriots controlled the Chargers in all phases of the game. They controlled the time of clock. They kind of shut down our special teams and had good punt returns and kick returns. Then damn selves, and they slowed our offense down to a point where we didn't really do much until that fourth quarter drive with Josh Palmer catching over 2 people in garbage time. So really, when you look at the statistics, it's just a Patriot way of winning to win 27-24, but dominate the entire game. So not looking good now. I still think the Chargers are going to win 10 games because their schedule is really weak. Even weaker than playing teams like the Patriots and playing like we play the Eagles this week, and I think we play Houston the week after that, and then Minnesota. And there's a string of games here where the Chargers are definitely the better team entering. They just got to go in and execute, and that's been the problem so far the last couple of weeks, last couple of games, is the Chargers are not executing on offense. They're playing solid on defense, but they are not executing on offense the way they were, and they're not clicking the way they were up into that Browns game. And did that Browns game use up all the juice they had? I sure hope not as a Chargers fan. I still think this team can win 11 or 12 games this year and compete for this division, depending on if the Raiders do fall off like I think they will or not. When it comes to the end of the season, I think it's going to be the Chargers and the Chiefs chasing this AFC West title. But I am biased. I mean, let's just be honest. Moving on to the Broncos, who started off amazingly. They started off 3-0 to start the season and then went on a 1-3 skid the last 4 games to put them at 4-4. 6-11 was the projection. I think that they're going to outdo that. I think that they're going to win 7, 8, 9 games this year. But I will say this. I did think the Broncos were better than the Raiders in the preseason, and I kept that stance up until about week 5 when they played each other, I believe, or week 6. But once they played each other, it was very clear which team was better. That wasn't a game that was a division tough game that the Broncos dropped. No, the Raiders were the better team in that game after just dealing with turmoil in their head coaching position, and I still think that to this day. So I think that the Broncos are going to continue to fall off a little bit. Teddy Bridgewater ain't it. Drew Lock ain't it. They got to be looking for a quarterback in the offseason this year. But definitely beating our original Warzone projection of 6-11. I think that they're going to win 8 games. 8-9, 9-8, one of those 2. That's going to do it for this week's installment of Random Videos made by Mike. This will be Mike's mid-season review. I appreciate you for tuning in, man. Hop in the comment section and predict from this point now every single division and who is going to win every single division and what you think their record's going to be. Drop down in the comment section. Let me know those predictions as soon as possible. I'm very interested to hear from you guys and what you think of the way the season is going down and the way it's going to go down for the rest of the year. Once again, one last time, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you turn on notifications because we do have more videos coming out today. We're going to be live for some Mike White versus Carson Wentz action. I'm sure that's going to be an exciting game to watch because you got 2 quarterbacks that are playing like they got nothing to lose. So I'm pumped for that, and I hope to see you guys all there at that stream. You can go to the stream. It's already set up, and you can hit set reminder now, and it'll actually alert you when we go live. So please head and do that. If you want some of this merch, one of these Warzone t-shirts, we got a couple different color variations. Head to www.warzonesportsnetwork.com. That is where you can purchase Warzone merch. There's a bunch of other options on the site, but if you want one of these specific shirts, this is my favorite, the one with the logo, black, and on the back you can see here, oh, we got a little more shout out there, Warzone Sports Network. It helps us out a ton, so go and check out those t-shirts on the website. And then also you saw the Prize Picks logo displayed on the overlays here. We are partnered with Prize Picks, and we do put in Prize Picks for every single event. So if you want to compete along with us, you can even send screenshots of your Prize Picks so we can root along with you during the live streams. Head to prizepicks.com, head to the Prize Picks app, and when you're making your initial deposit, use code WARZONE, WARZONE. There's a promo code, and it's an exclusive offer for a limited time where they're going to match your deposit up to $100. So if you put in $80, they're going to give you another $80. So you have $160 to play with on Prize Picks. And let me tell you, man, I've had some success on Prize Picks. I'm having a good time playing Prize Picks. It gives you a little bit of extra juice, extra motivation to root for certain players in the field, especially if you don't have anyone in fantasy for that game. So like for tonight, we can go ahead and start looking at those Michael Carter projections. He's going over. That's all from me. I think that's all the cheap plugs for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm Mike, and I'm on the mic, and this is me saying until next time.
I gave you fair warning, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth. I gave you fair warning, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth. I gave you fair warning, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth. I gave you fair warning, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth. I gave you fair warning, beware, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth. I gave you fair warning, beware, beware. I'll smack him in the mouth.